What is just not the flex that people think it is? Boasting about how much drinking and smoking weed they can do. Having a high tolerance is ass. You're paying more to get to the same point. Grinding crazy hours, not taking holidays. 60, 80-hour weeks and no holidays. Public accountants looking at you. My cousin's husband always brags about what a manly man he is and how he's never changed his daughter's diaper, bathed her, but put her to bed. Their daughter is coming up to 1 year old and he never fails to brag about it every family gathering. I'm not sure why he sees it as a flex. Basically bragging about being a terrible father. Used to have a friend like this. I said, congratulations on admitting that you only contributed the 30 seconds it took to conceive them and nothing else. He just looked at me all bug-eyed like, my cousin's husband always brags about what a manly man he is and how he's never changed his daughter's diaper, bathed her, put her to bed. Holy shit, these men still exist. I knew a man like this. He said that he attempted to change his newborn daughter's diaper once, promptly threw up, and never attempted to do so again. He had 2 daughters. The oldest is like 58. He's dead now, COVID, but I still think about that regularly, and it pisses me the fuck off. Surprise, surprise, his older daughter stopped talking to him 10 years before his death, and she did not show up to the funeral. I know it wasn't about the diaper, but I think that's indicative of the type of man he was. My cousin's husband always brags about what a manly man he is, and how he's never changed his daughter's diaper, bathed her, put her to bed. That's so embarrassing. He's proud he's a shitty dad. My co-workers flexing their 900 car payments for new cars they didn't need to buy with high interest rate. I was in a forum where some dude was bragging about his $3,000 car payment. My mortgage on my house and my rental is less than that. He claimed he could write off 100% of it as a business expense for his wife's business. He was doing a whole lot of things wrong. Riding around in a limousine. I think it was David Spade who made the joke about it, saying roughly, whenever I see someone riding in a limo, I think, wow, you have $300. Edit. Who Garfield, wound 2323, Dueno actually found the clip. It was $80. Years ago, when I was doing air ambulance flights, whenever we reached the destination with a patient, we'd scheduled an ambulance, obviously, to transport us to the hospital. Since there was a risk that it would be called off on the way back to the plane, we'd normally take a cab back, but it had to be a van in order to fit all the gear and stretcher. We had one transport that was a 2-hour drive away, so we hired a car service, the taxi. The dispatcher tells us that for the distance we traveled, a limo was the same price as the van, so we booked that. We thought this was going to be an airport, limo-style Lincoln sedan, but it ended up being a full-stretch limo. Then he asks if we've eaten yet. Nope. So he pulls into a burger joint so we can grab something. The looks of people seeing a stretch limo pull into a small town burger joint and 3 people in flight suits, we'd been up all night and looked like hell, topple out to grab a burger, fries and a shake was a sight to behold. Thank you for that mental image, but also for the severe disappointment at not being able to see that in person. That sounds like a scene out of a movie where the heroes have just finished doing some heroic thing. Like the Avengers getting shawarma. I just assume it's on its way to a bachelorette party or prom. I wonder if there was a tipping point of them no longer being used by the rich and powerful. A black SUV with blacked out windows is the way to go if you want to look important today. Bonus points if you've got a convoy of them. I've gotten in them a few times because I was out with like 5, 10 people, and it made sense to get across town. Same here. There were 6 of us in Vegas, riding back from Fremont Street to the Strip. Cabs can only take 5, so we had a choice of either 2 cabs or 1 limo. Limo was like $75 and came with a 6-pack of beer, whereas the cabs were $35 each. That was a no-brainer, even with a $25 tip for the ride and the beer, making it an even $100. Got to take a limo for a grand total of $20 once. We were doing a bachelor party, trying to call a taxi from the club to the Waffle House. A limo pulls up outside of the club and the driver steps out, and the driver steps out and lights a cigarette. One of the guys in our group walks up to him and asks if he can give us a ride to Waffle House. Dude calls his boss, looks up at us, and says $20. We handed the man a $20 and he drove us clear across the city to Waffle House. Would have probably been more to take a cab. Being a self-proclaimed ass horror bitch. Got to take a limo for a grand total of $20 once. We were doing a bachelor party, trying to call a taxi from the club to the Waffle House. A limo pulls up outside of the club, and the driver steps out and lights a cigarette. One of the guys in our group walks up to him and asks if he can give us a ride to Waffle House. Dude calls his boss, looks up at us, and says $20. We handed the man $20 and he drove us clear across the city to Waffle House. Would have probably been more to take a cab. I'm my own boss, participant. Knowing a couple of people who actually started non-pyramid scheme businesses, being your own boss really isn't all it's cracked up to be. All of them will kind of just disappear for a few months like, oh sorry, I've been working 16-hour days, got a couple of new clients and had a contractor quit. Even if it's not an exploitative scam, being your own boss, if you're still in a position where you have to respond to someone's needs, just clients rather than a boss, just sounds awful. Even if it's not an exploitative scam, being your own boss, if you're still in a position where you have to respond to someone's needs, just clients rather than a boss, just clients rather than a boss, just sounds awful. It is, the pay is better, but the working environment is well. Working for another boss means there's an extra layer of bureaucracy between me and the people who want the stuff I make. And that's a good thing because then I don't have people harassing me every day. I don't agree with everything he says, but one thing my boss is awesome at is he protects the team from getting exploited. He filters out requests from other departments and prevents scope creep in projects and allows us to perform our tasks in peace. I don't agree with everything he says, but one thing my boss is awesome at is he protects the team from getting exploited. He filters out requests from other departments and prevents scope creep in projects and allows us to perform our tasks in peace. One of my older bosses was also an excellent shit filter. He only gave us the information we needed to get our jobs done. He was an asshole, but he was a consistent asshole, so we knew exactly what to expect from him and his expectations from us. As long as we did our jobs and didn't cause problems for him to have to deal with any extra B's paperwork, we had an easy time. The pay is better if you're lucky enough to be successful. Most small businesses fail within the first few years. I love it when people on Instagram have a like t-shirt company, totally online, and their bio says CEO Lo. I got into an argument with one once who was defending mums, but wouldn't say which mum she was with. And when I pressed, she said, would you tell me who your boss is if you thought I'd call them and complain? She blocked me when I said that I didn't have a boss, because I actually own my business. Edit. A word. I hate it when I tell people I'm my own boss, with a business I solely built from the ground up, and they tell me that they are too. I get all excited and then they name some horrid mum. You didn't do a damn thing, you got a fucking kit, followed instructions and still actually have a boss. Smack. Never taking your tool. My dad argues with me all the time off again. I don't know how you can do that all the time. You've taken off more this year than I have in the past decade. I earned it. I pay my dues, I go to work. This is what we get to sow just because you have the time. You just have to use it. Damn right. He is maxed out on 2, and it's use or lose. He just loses it every year. And talks shit about his co-workers that burn the difference. Like, oh, he does that all the time. I don't see the point of taking vacation just to burn the time. It's not like they're actually going on vacation. Dude, they are paying you to not work. Never get that through my boss's head. Right? It's infinitely dumber to not take it. Who doesn't want to get paid to go do something they enjoy, or just sit on their ass and do nothing? Lots of those type of people don't have anything in their life besides work. They don't have any real connections or relationships, and they don't know what to do with themselves when they aren't at work. As a small business owner myself, this is something I've really fought to not get caught up in, but I have several employees who are exactly this type, and what sucks is that they get upset with me for taking my vacations. My girlfriend's boss took exactly 1 day off in the past 10 years because it was his birthday and his wife forced him to. That was 3 years ago, and he constantly bitches about it still. He's also the type of boss that spends most of his day making sure people are working. Sounds like my boss. She refuses to take time off even if she's sick. She gave 2 of my co-workers COVID. She also gets mad when anyone else calls out sick. She was pissed when my co-worker missed work because she tore her outland, was telling us she's young. It's not that bad. I genuinely like my job. I like getting to solve cool puzzles all day long. If my company would let me cash out too, I probably wouldn't take all of it. However, They don't let me cash it out, and I can only roll over 40 hours of tow on my employment anniversary, so I make sure to carry less than that because fuck losing free money. Like, poo tow is literally part of my compensation. Losing tow is losing money, and fuck you all if you think I'm just gonna give that shit away for no reason. You could offer to pay it out to me and I'd work more, but you don't, so give me that free money while also losing me for 4 weeks every year. My bottom line isn't going to take a hit either way, but yours just might. Losing TO is wild to me. I've got about 280 hours of annual leave and 350 hours of sick careers leave banked up over the past 6 years at my company. I've taken plenty of time off and chucked heaps of sickies, but I still have all of that and can't imagine losing Pete. My annual leave balance even gets paid out when I leave. There is no amount of 2 I wouldn't take. If I had 51 weeks, I would only work 1 week per year. I work so I can travel. It is the one thing that brings me joy, so I do it as much as possible, heating out for an entire month in 3 weeks. Some people have a life, Dad. Then, get this, my boss tried to give me my full compensation. Lady tried to uphold the terms of my employment. Ha ha! So, obviously I just left that giant lump of money on the table, as it were, and started working harder. I'm not an idiot. Fuck! I love practically exploiting myself on someone else's behalf. One of my biggest regrets was leaving a job with a buttload of tea on the table. Screw the corporation and take what is rightfully yours. In the UK, the company will get in trouble if you don't take it. So if it gets to the end of the year and you have days off still left, I will usually go round reminding you to please take your days off. It was fun during 2020 when everyone cancelled their spring-summer holidays. So ended up with basically the entire company off for the last fortnight of the financial year. I don't want to put my employer in trouble. If I miss some work, then the employer proceeds to butt-fuck you every chance he gets. Being a top earner in a moment. Oh, I'm Zephyr Amethyst here, I'll have you know. One-upmanship. Good grief. People think making someone else look less than them makes them cool. No. It makes you look insecure. I have a lovely friend who does this. For example, a few years back I ran my first tank in a little under an hour. When I told everyone, my friend responded with, I ran my last tank in 35 minutes. It wasn't even that hard. Well, no shit, Bethany. You're professional fucking triathlete. I had a Bethany co-worker. We nicknamed her Rhonda O'Hare because any accomplishment you had Rhonda would respond with, oh yeah. Well, you could take a 10-pound shit and Rhonda O'Hare would have taken an 11-pound one. Some people are insufferable. Do you know who my dad, mom, or parents are? No, no one cares. They are asking. They don't know. Help the clueless in need. Or, sweetheart, are you lost? Some teenager said that to my dad after a minor car accident. My dad's reply was, yeah, and I'm calling him up right now so he can pick you up. I wish I could have bottled up the look of crushing defeat on that little shit's face. Do you know who my father is? Yes, well done. Your father did well for himself. What have you done? Being proud about being brutally honest when they're just rude. I'm just brutally honest with people, proceeds to make rude, subjective comment that is usually a dishonest front to cover their issues. They're the worst. Lol, I have a co-worker who in my 6 weeks at my new job had said in every single conversation that she has no filter and will tell it like it is. Congratulations. You have the maturity of a child and cannot read a room. You have no empathy or manners. Good for you. When adults brag about high school sports achievements like that's their whole personality. Yeah, it just sounds like Al Bundy talking about how he scored 4 touchdowns in one game at Polk High. To be fair, he was playing against Bubba Spare Tire Dixon. Oh, you work 40 hours a week. I remember my first part-time job. Fuck you. Coming to work sick. Proclaiming you're an alpha male. In fact, it makes you look like a complete idiot, and everyone hates you. This always reminds me of the Tywin Lannister quote, any man who must say, I am king, is no true king. One of the best lines in that show. And then later, he walked into the small council and everyone just stands up and shuts the fuck up, even though Jeffrey Boy is the king. But everyone knew who was in charge. Tywin was an evil mofo, but Charles Dance just excelled in that role. One of the best characters on it. Perfect casting, writing and acting for Tywin up until after 4 or so. Alpha, software, unstable, unpredictable, and not recommended for general consumption. If you have to tell someone that you're an alpha, you're not. Not that having alpha males is a meaningful thing in human society anyway. While alphas aren't a thing, people confuse it with people that are more confident, have a dominant personality, and have a commanding presence. The people that claim to be an alpha are usually just souls that think being a dick to everyone around you somehow makes you dominant. These idiots that ride motorcycles out super fast and recklessly down city streets, doing wheelies and swerving in and out of traffic. What annoys me is that those guys are never the ones I see getting tickets. It's always the poor dude driving 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, just trying to go to the grocery store or whatever. Nipped standard procedure is to not chase them. They used to just write down the plate and impound it from their driveway. Now they learned to remove the plates. It was just too dangerous to try and pull them over if they were not going to stop, so I get the choice. But it's still like, come on, you have to have a better solution than to shrug. The I never take a day off types who live at work. How bad does your home life have to be? Working for one of those types is the worst. Working under one of those guys now, it's a ninium to 5 job. I stay late on the occasional day. This guy regularly pulls 8:30 to 7 days. Complains he doesn't have time to date. Wish he'd loosen up, not be a smart ass all the time, and not use his job career as his personality. Would help him to be more approachable and maybe kinda likable. My wife told me she wanted to get pictures of our daughter by a specific photographer. I was able to get an appointment with him in June, which I figured I'd pay for as a Mother's Day gift. I told my wife about it, and her first response was, I'll never be able to get there in time from work. It took a lot of arguing to convince her to take the day off, even though she's only taken 1 day off so far this year, and she has unlimited days. Bro, I'm such an alcoholic I can drink X amount of alcohol. Ugh, that was me in my 20s. I was absolutely a functioning alcoholic, downing a handlook plus wine and beer. No wonder I put on 6 tubes, dropped it all since thankfully. Used to brag about drinking everyone under the table, and then it kinda dawned on me that I might actually have an addiction problem. So glad that it didn't take a more severe wake-up call like hospitalization for overconsumption or something like that. Yay, same, I was drinking at least a handle a day, and ended up with seizures if I went 10 hours without a drink. Coming up on a year sober. I've been at a company now for 8 months that has an unlimited to policy. As long as your manager approves, you're good. Now I work in logistics supply chain, and the last few years dealing with the effects of the pandemic have been the hardest of my 11-year career, and seemingly those who've been in the industry way longer than me. So burning vacation where I came from unfortunately became necessary during that time. Having said that, people generally used their vacation unless they absolutely could not when it was being counted. At my company now, folks hardly ever take a day off. At first, I didn't want to be the new guy taking weeks off when other people are seemingly overworked. I've taken 2 full days and 2 half days off now in 8 months, and need to ramp that up. I push my team to take more vacation, but they're reluctant. Part of it may be the sense that with the possibility of layoffs in a down economy industry, everyone wants to look like a workaholic to ensure they don't get cut. Having a huge, expensive wedding when you're not a wealthy person. My first wedding was done on the cheap, and we flexed about that for years after. We loved bragging about how much we didn't spend. And to perfectly bookend the story, the divorce was amicable, so we didn't spend much on that either. Bro is flexing his cheap divorce. That's the winner of this thread. How many followers you have? CrossFit. As a nurse that has worked in orthopedic surgery, a lot of our surgical procedures are repairing injuries from CrossFit. Before I really got into weightlifting, I was finding avenues to be more active and lose some weight initially. Couldn't get into running, so I looked into CrossFit momentarily, followed the big YouTubers to try and get a feel for the culture, and noticed that without fail, every single one of them, and pretty much everybody they knew, had at one point gotten a serious injury. Not an elevate and put on ice injury. I'm talking surgery and rehab. Felt like a massive red flag. And now that I'm into weightlifting, I understand how much more dangerous CrossFit is than I initially thought. My orthopedic doctor told me he could run his whole practice on CrossFit injuries. Goodness, I need you to talk to my friend before his mildly arrogant ass gets himself hurt. Talking to CrossFitters about CrossFit sounds like the world's easiest job. Working 60 hours a week and grind mentality, don't get me wrong, I like odd. Especially because all of my odd is double time, and I like making the big bucks from time to time, but trying to flex that you work 60 hours per week and saying that anything less than 60 hours per week and saying that anything less than 60 hours is part-time is just plain stupid. You are working your life away, spending more time away from your family, and it shows just how underpaid you really are. You think you're tired? Try working 70 hours a week. Me, no. I have older bosses, 60, that don't call it a grind mentality, but more so living at the office. One of them harps on the fact that he is in the office all of the time, first one in, last one out. He even came during COVID and was always here. Well, the department he runs has plenty of issues and is a major cause of why we didn't hit all of our company targets last year. So I'm not sure what value him being in the office all the time actually has. If we can't find a way to do our job effectively in a normal 40-hour work week, then we're doing something wrong, or we need to advocate for more people. Owning a Range Rover. I have one, it's nearly 10 years old, done 77 miles and drives like shit. How big their mortgage is. Dude, you're just bragging about how crippling your debt is. Lord, I have a friend who told me their mortgage was $1.3 million. Come to find out, it was actually a $700 mortgage that her husband told me on a separate occasion. Like, why lie, let alone brag about it? Couples that are miserable bragging how many years they have been together. They always use their anniversary to talk about how much they can't stand each other too. We've had our ups and downs, and we often don't get along. But between all the yelling and fighting and breakups, we've made it work. Love you, babe. Thanks for doing life with me. Happy anniversary. It's weird. Driving around in a super loud vehicle, such as a low-riding Scion with glass backs. If you own one of these, you look like an asshole and everyone hates you. Teachers bragging how some high percentage of the class fails every year. If you're not devoting all your time studying for this class, you will fail. If you're taking other classes besides this one, you will fail. Bitch, this isn't Introduction to Advanced Cardiovascular Surgery. This is Music Appreciation 101. Calm your tits. How little you slept last night. That sounds more like a complaint than a flex. Oh, you must have never run into one of those one-upper type people. The type that when you say you only had 4 hours of sleep, they'll go only. I wish I could sleep that long. My dog Kitspouse keeps me up late, and I only slept for 2 hours. You don't really know what tired is. I would kill for 4 hours of sleep. So annoying because both our situations are shitty. No need to get into a contest of who's having a shittier day. You got 2 hours of sleep. Must be nice to sleep in all the time. Luxury. When I were a lad, I used to wake up at 10:30 at night, half an hour before I went to bed, with a handful of cold gravel for breakfast, worked 27 hours down a coal mine for tuppence a month. Then when I got home, Dad used to kill us. I haven't read a book since high school. This is not a flex. Not being interested in reading, having issues with it, or having had shitty teachers ruining it for you is one thing, but saying it like you're proud of it tells me a lot about the type of person you are. None of it is good. Not wearing your seatbelt, not using sunscreen, bragging about how many people you've slept with, bragging about how little sleep you got this night. Saying you make more money than somebody in an argument. I work in healthcare. People who say, my daughter, husband, neighbor's cat 2 doors down is a doctor. I gaff. Does that mean you've instilled their medical knowledge and experience through osmosis? I would treat you the same as every other patient, although the type of person who says stuff like this is usually the biggest obstacle to their treatment. Personally, I would give a fuck about a cat doctor being a dickhead to people.